Hey babes, and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about the Rachel Leary X Makeup Revolution collab, but the smaller palette, because we did already do a video on the larger one. So I will link this video down below if you guys want to check the video that I did on this larger palette, which is the Ultimate Goddess palette. But today the focus is the Goddess on the Go palette, which is her smaller version of like her collaboration. It is a face and eye palette, so that is really great. It looks really nice. I really love the packaging and everything. But we're gonna get into that in a minute. So if you guys want to see how I got this makeup look right here with the Goddess on the Go palette, then just go ahead and keep watching. Alright guys, so I have one eye done and we are going to get started on this one right here using the Makeup Revolution X Rachel Leary collab. This is the small palette, so I talked about the big one in my last video, and this is the Goddess on the Go palette. The big one is called the Ultimate Goddess. I don't have any face products on my face today because I feel like this palette has every bronzer and blush and highlight that I need, so I'm going to try to do everything with that palette in particular. But first things first, I need to blend out this eye base. It's actually just leftover foundation, but I'm going to go ahead and start with my Wet n Wild PhotoFocus Concealer to carve out my brows. I'm just going to do a little bit at the top, but you guys literally saw me do this in my last video, so I'm just going to cut this out because y'all know how I do it. Just gonna clean it up. So I wanted to give you guys a close-up look of this makeup. I think it looks really nice. I think it's like a really fall vibe, pretty dramatic, but it's not too dark. This palette doesn't exactly have like particularly dark shades. I'm gonna start off with this orange right here called Peach Please. It is the lightest color in the palette, like I think at all, that isn't shimmery, because all the other ones I would normally dip into face pans for this if I couldn't find a color lighter, but this pan doesn't have any. So basically I'm just going to blend this shade out like the best that I can, because you can see it's not exactly like the ideal transition shade. I really think that that's something that this little palette is missing. She did a really great job of incorporating the concept of the larger palette, which is called the Ultimate Goddess palette, into this smaller one. But the problem is that I don't feel like this has any really good transition shade. You really have to blow out this Peach Please shade, and even then it's very, very orangey. So I don't know if this would be like the perfect travel palette for that reason, because you might have to put something else in the crease. So okay, so I've blown that out pretty good. Next, I'm going to take the exact same brush and go in with the shade right next to it. It's called Straight Fire. And it's basically like just a tad darker. You see they're really similar shades. I feel like she could have picked maybe just one of them. I'd honestly probably gone with the darker one and then subbed something lighter for that Peach Please shade. So I'm just building this up in the crease and bringing it all the way into my inner corner. Just really basic windshield wiper motions here. And then we are going to jump to this bottom row right here. So I'm going to start off with the shade Pucker Up. And then I'm going to go into the shade Red Velvet, and then with a little bit of Sweet Lake. So I'm just going from these two to these three. And that's kind of the order that I felt to be most appropriate, because we're going from lightest to darkest. So for the shade Pucker Up, I'm using a slightly more precise brush. And for some reason, all the other shades seem to have quite a bit of kick up, but this Pucker Up shade does not, and I'm not sure why. But it's basically just an even deeper, more like fiery, orangey red shade. Doing the same thing, but keeping this shade just a little bit more lower into the crease and building it up a little bit more intense. And so then what I'm going to do is go back in with my previous brush and hit those edges of that color to really smoke it out. Okay, so then I'm going to go in with the shade Red Velvet. It is a really beautiful maroon kind of shade, and I'm going to start by packing it on my lower lid right here to get the most pigment there. Then I'm dusting it in the crease. And then what I'm going to do is, with the excess I'm not picking up anymore, is I'm bringing the excess into the inner corner, because this look is going to be a really subtle halo eye. Normally if I want a more intense halo eye, I'll go in with some concealer. So if you want this look, this shimmer shade here to be more intense, go in with some concealer. But I just wanted to keep it kind of more wearable in that sense. So I'm going to go back in with my previous brush that had the shade Pucker Up on it. And that's really the problem here, is that you just want to make sure that you're blending out your transitions really well. You can see that there's a little bit of like patchiness here, so I'm going to focus on that. Part of what I do when I'm doing looks that I pretty much any makeup look is I have a close-up mirror that I'll look into, and then I'll have something further away, or like put my mirror further away so that I can get more perspective. And then of course going back in with that first brush yet again. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with the shade Sweet Like, and it is basically just a really warm chocolate brown shade. It's really pretty, and I really like the way that it goes on. All of these shades blend pretty well. I think maybe Red Velvet is a little bit harder to work with, but maybe it's because of the darkness of it. But I feel like this one blends really nicely despite it being dark. So I'm bringing this one just slightly into the crease, then going back in with the Red Velvet shade to emphasize that purple. Basically just working backwards now, picking up my previous brushes. Really want to make sure I'm getting a nice gradient. Okay, so then for the center of the lid, I'm going to go in with the shade Chi Chi, which is this really beautiful, like, peachy gold shimmer kind of shade. It's very rose gold-esque. And I'm going to take this really tiny Wet n Wild brush. It is super thin and precise. And I'm picking up quite a bit of this shade, and then I'm going to spray my brush, and I'm going to slap it on this center part of the lid that we left exposed. And then from here, I'm just going to kind of pat it outwards. Just going back in with the shade Red Velvet, or the brush that I used for that shade, which is the purple-y shade. And I'm just going to run my brush to kind of smooth out any edges that we have going on. Okay, so then we're going to start working on the lower lash line. I'm going to take the shade Red Velvet, and I'm going to pop that across my lower lash line. And then underneath that, I'm going to go in with the shade Straight Fire right here, that second shade that we used, and just kind of use that shade to diffuse the purple, make it look a little bit more wearable under the eye. And then just dust off any fallout. There's not much, and since I've already set my face, I really don't have much to worry about in the fallout department, but there definitely was some. So then I'm going to go in with some eyeliner. This is the Beauty For Real eyeliner in the shade Finish Line. It's just your basic liquid liner, and I'm just going to do a really straight little line just to kind of help cover my lash band a little more. And then I'm going to go in with the Mascara Revolution, which is the Makeup Revolution mascara that they sent over. And the more I use it, the more I really like it. I feel like at first it was kind of liquidy in the sense that it was like a lot of product. But after having used it a little bit, I feel like it is the perfect consistency. And it does make my lashes look really nice. So this is kind of what the look looks like without having falsies. Obviously haven't put any mascara on my lower lash line yet. But I think this look still looks really good with just some mascara. And of course you can build that up to however intensity you like. Okay guys, so I'm going to pop on some bottom mascara, and I'm going to pop on my lashes, and then we're going to come back to finish up the face. Okay guys, so now we're going to start working on the face and using her face products. I'm going to start, I actually started doing it but my camera wasn't filming. I'm going to start in with this matte bronzer shade. It's called Caramel Slice. It's a pretty warm bronzer, but it's not coming off too intense. I think that might be partly because I'm using, never mind. I just wasn't dipping my brush in hard. Oh wow, okay. So it can definitely get intense. It's definitely a really terracotta warm kind of bronzer, so if you're pretty fair, I really don't think this is super, like, versatile. You'd have to have a very, very light hand. It looks like a nice bronzer, but it's not my favorite. Almost looks a little muddy in some areas, if you can see, like as soon as I apply it. I think I would use this more as a contour shade rather than like an all over bronzer shade, if you know what I mean. Like I would put on my regular bronzer, which is obviously would be lighter than this, and then go in with something way less like terracotta all over my face. But for the sake of this video, I definitely have nothing in this palette to contour my nose with, so I'm going to use my regular Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer for that. Okay, so then next I'm going to do highlight, and there's a really warm one, which would be really nice on deeper skin tones, and then there's a really light one, and I guess for me I'd probably mix the two to get like my desired effect. I'm also going to take the shade Get It Poppin', which is the lighter highlight shade, and touch my brow bone just a little. I think that kind of completes the look. I'm also going to take that and pop it into the inner corner. It's definitely an intense highlight, but I feel like for my face, I'd like something more buttery. So I'm going to go in with the Jake Jamie spray that was also sent to me, just to kind of wet my face a little bit, get my base moist for highlighter. And I'm going to just mix the two highlights to kind of see what result we can get. Maybe I didn't dip in hard enough. Okay, so I think that mixed, they look really nice. And I feel like this highlight, at least what I experienced with the other ones, if they're the same formula, I could probably build them up to something way more intense. Just taking the excess and going over my brow bone. They're definitely really nice, but I'd probably use them in conjunction with products that I already like. I wouldn't just rely on this one palette to do everything for me, even though it is like meant for like being on the go and traveling. I'd probably still bring like my other OG products. Like I'd probably bring a highlight more like the ABH Amrezy one that's like a more kind of in between the golden one and the very light one that's in this palette. So I'm gonna just contour my nose a little bit with the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. This is normally the kind of shade that I would put all over my face, and just to compare it, you see how light this one is compared to how dark this one from the Rachel Leary palette is. So I feel like this is something that, like, if I wanted to take this palette to travel with, I'd have to bring a bronzer that was more this shade. Okay, so all that's left is some blush. I'm going to use the only blush that's in this palette. It is the shade Sunkissed, and I think it is a really beautiful pinky blush, and I actually have used it before, and I just dipped into the highlight shade. And I actually really liked it. So I think it's just like a really good wearable blush that anybody can use for any look. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw on a lip, and I'll be right back. Okay guys, so this is the finished look. Here's the lip. I literally just threw on some lip gloss because I'm kind of in a rush and I didn't really feel like doing a vampy lip or anything darker. I still feel like it is time for gloss. Normally in the winter I like to go a little bit more matte. But I'm using the Milani lip in the shade Natural Luster. Honestly, I feel like it's kind of a dupe for the Fenty glosses. Although the taste is different, it's a little bit more minty, or the smell or whatever is more minty. I still think it's really nice, and it's kind of shimmery in the same sense. So I just kind of wanted to give you guys my final thoughts on this palette. I know that it is intended for on the go, and I guess my biggest like downside is that although it is, and I like a lot of the products, and my face actually looks great having only used what's in here, I would have preferred a better transition shade than this shade right here. And I would have also probably chosen like a different kind of highlight here. And of course I'll have to bring like my own bronzer, that because I feel like this is more of a contour shade for me. So there are those little things, but honestly I think that my makeup came out amazing. Like, I think it looks so good, and overall I really do like the palette. The shades are really nice. They have a little bit of kickback in the pan, but it's a really great product for a really great price. I will list the price right here for you guys. And I feel like overall the reason she made two palettes is for you to decide what kind of girl you are. If this is good enough for you, that's great. If not, get the bigger one. It has a lot more stuff in it, and honestly I could probably do a little bit more with this bronzer shades and stuff here. But again, the highlight selection has kind of thrown me off on this larger palette. Otherwise this would be like my go palette. But then again, I pack like a pack mule for makeup, so I don't know if I'm really the best like representation of that. But overall I really like this palette. I think it's worth the price, and I definitely enjoy it. I would just, you know, use it in conjunction with my regular favorite products. That is it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hope you enjoyed getting to see the Goddess on the Go palette in action. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you guys haven't already, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!